After Talladega, the chase field has been split in half, with several top championship contenders ending up on the outside. How's it going, everybody? Hope your weekend was swell. I'm Eric, and this is Out of the Groove. So as I just mentioned, Talladega officially marked the end of the second round of the chase. We now have only 8 drivers remaining when we started with 16. And these 8 drivers, I'll just start off right off the bat by saying it, I literally think they are all pretty much dead even in terms of who I think is most likely to win the championship. It's almost a straight split right down the middle. The 8 drivers moving on are Jimmie Johnson, Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano, Kurt Busch, and then the 4 Gibbs guys, Matt Kenseth, Kyle Busch, Carl Edwards, and Denny Hamlin. Of those 8 drivers, 5 of them are past champions, but then the other 3 are Denny Hamlin, Carl Edwards, and Joey Logano, so clearly all 8 of these guys are going to be on top of their game. Should be a very competitive final 4 races of the season. I'm really looking forward to it, but today, unfortunately, we mourn the 4 drivers that will not be moving on. Chase Elliott, Martin Truex Jr., Brad Keselowski, and Austin Dillon. So yeah, out of those 4 drivers, there's some pretty big names not going on to the next round. I'm kind of jumping all over the place. Let's go into a little bit what happened this weekend at Talladega. I'll try not to make this episode too long, but there's a lot to talk about. Brad Keselowski seemed once again to have most likely the best car there. He's won the last 2 restrictor plate tracks, including the most recent one at Talladega. He also won at Talladega in 2014, so coming into this race, a lot of people had him as their favorites. I had him as the favorite. I did not think he was going to win the race. I personally had him getting eliminated, so I'll take that W there. But Keselowski early on and for most of the first half of the race seemed to have the best car. Chase Elliott was competitive as well. Even the Roush Fenway guys, Greg Biffle, Ricky Stenhouse were up front for a lot of it. We had some other underdog teams. I saw Chris Buescher running up front at one point. Brian Scott ended up finishing second. He obviously really overachieved this weekend. But Keselowski seemed to have the best car. Pretty early in the race, Martin Truex Jr. blew an engine while running in the top 10. Well, actually, he fell back and then blew an engine, but he was running in the top 10 before he had troubles. That blown engine was, it obviously ruined Truex's chase hopes. He was out at that point. But poor Martin Truex Jr., man. He came into the weekend with a 13-point cushion, which isn't a huge cushion, especially at Talladega, but boy, you just can never prepare for an engine failure like that. Obviously, that team, along with some of the others, were probably pushing it a little bit, knowing how big this weekend was. Just didn't go well, unfortunately, for Martin Truex Jr. And I mentioned in last week's episode, last week's episode, that I felt like Martin, if anyone was going to get hit with bad luck this weekend, it was going to be Truex, just because he's never been super, spectacular at plate tracks. He's never been particularly known for being great there. Plus, that team just always seems to have the worst possible luck. They just seem to have a curse over their heads whenever it matters most. Still, breakthrough season for that team with as many wins as they had. I can't say breakthrough season because they've been good the last couple of years, but a season they should definitely be proud of on that team for sure. But yeah, so Truex blew an engine. He was out at that point. Really downed everyone's spirits, in my opinion. Chase Elliott came into the weekend basically needing to win. He lurked around the top 5, top 10 almost all day, but by the end of the race, he just found himself around 10th to 15th, couldn't find a lane to get up to the front, and ultimately, I don't know where he actually ended up finishing. I think it was 12th. So that was definitely not good enough to move on. There were no big ones during this race, which I guess was kind of surprising to some people, not so surprising to others. I personally thought there'd probably be like one big wreck, but there's a couple small wrecks, 2 or 3 cars involved. There's a couple of those. I thought the racing in general was still very good and competitive. You saw a decent amount of lead changes. Even though Keselowski had by far the best car, you still saw a pretty good amount of racing up front. Like, it wasn't just easy for him at all times. The lack of big ones really hurt guys like Martin Truex Jr., who had that engine failure and could not make up any points by other guys wrecking out. Brad Keselowski was the other guy I should probably jump right in and talk about. Like I said, he's had the best car, but he also had an engine trouble. His seemed to be more due to getting debris on the grill and overheating the engine and then taking too long to get back in traffic and fix it. So that blown engine was maybe slightly more avoidable than Truex's, but still just a kind of an unforeseen, unfortunate circumstance. Keselowski, another guy who had a lot of wins this year, I think he had 4 wins this season, had the best plate car without a doubt. He was out. He's out of the chase as well. Once again, I called it in last week's episode. I said I didn't think Keselowski was going to win this. The odds of him winning a 3rd straight plate track, which is something only Dale Earnhardt has done before, I didn't think it was very likely, with especially how competitive the field is. He almost proved me wrong, though. His car was good, but ultimately, circumstances got the best of him. So I've talked about those 3. The 4th guy to get out was Austin Dillon, and Austin Dillon, he ran a great race. He lurked in the top 10, top 15, didn't seem to have a car that could race to the front, but definitely had a car that could compete in the pack and make moves. Austin Dillon's a good plate racer, so he knew what he was doing. Ultimately, he and Denny Hamlin tied in points at the end of this thing. Denny Hamlin beat Kurt Busch to the line by about 1.5 feet, and that one position tied him and Austin Dillon in points, but with Hamlin having that third place finish, better than any of Austin Dillon's finishes this round, Denny Hamlin ultimately won the tiebreaker over Austin Dillon, sending the 3-car home. And those are your 4 drivers that we will not be seeing any more of in this year's chase. I noticed a lot of people complaining about the race at Talladega for not being exciting and stuff, and I personally don't know what they were watching. I thought the race itself was very entertaining. I mean, it was 2 and 3 wide 75% of the race. I mean, yeah, there wasn't like a huge wreck, but we saw a couple of 3-car crashes. We saw differing strategies. I'll talk about the Joe Gibbs guys in a minute. We saw a pretty good amount of lead changes. It was obvious Brad Keselowski had by far a better car than pretty much anyone else. And even he wasn't able to stay up front all the time. Like, we had Greg Biffle leading at some points, Chase Elliott leading at some points, underdogs getting up, like I said, Brian Scott and others just in the top 5 late in the race and whatnot, having good days. I thought it was a great race. It wasn't the best Talladega race I've ever seen, but it was good. I look on social media and everything afterwards, like in all day yesterday and even today, and there's so much complaining. And the only reasons I could understand is these guys just wanted wrecks, which I guess, yeah, wrecks can be exciting, especially when nobody gets hurt, but that's not what solely determines what a good race is, in my opinion. Other people, maybe they're mad because they thought Truex or Keselowski or even Chase Elliott deserved to move on, and just this one bad race, it's not fair, the chase is stupid. I'm getting really tired of people saying the chase is stupid. Is the chase perfect? Heck no, it's not. Personally, I think the best chase we had was in like 2013 when like the first 10 in points made it and then we had a couple wild cards get on wins. I thought that was the best chase format, but these round by round systems, I'm not gonna lie, it's grown on me. When this format started in 2014 and Ryan Newman almost won the championship despite not being that competitive all year, I wasn't a big fan of it. But since that season, the chase format has definitely grown on me, because when you look at the champions the last 2 years, Kevin Harvick in 2014, I don't think anyone could argue that he didn't deserve that championship. Kyle Busch last year, people debated whether he deserved to be in the chase, but Kyle Busch was by far the best car, best driver. Every race he was in that season, he deserved it as well. So far, this current chase system, in my opinion, is 2 for 2 in picking out champions. And right now, if you look at this season, yes, Brad Keselowski, who's won 4 races this year, been really good, he's out. Is that unfortunate? Yeah. And Martin Truex Jr., another guy, 4 wins this season. He won 2 races in the first round of the chase. Does he deserve to probably make it move on? In the grand scheme of things, probably. But at the same time, their problems were their own doing. NASCAR's current chase system is very similar to the NFL, MLB, NBA's playoff systems, which nobody really ever complains about. Sure, you can be great in the regular season, and if you are, it helps you in the first round of the playoffs. Like, you get, in a way, like a first round bye. That's what you get with the bonus points. And we've seen those bonus points help people big time in the past. But if you look at this year's chase, Brad Keselowski last week at Kansas wrecked himself. That was his fault. You know, that was his fault. This weekend at Talladega, blew an engine. I mean, it's not his fault, but it was a problem that only the team could do to themselves. And just like in the NBA or NFL, if a team sucks during the playoffs, they're out. Because, I'm sorry, but the playoffs, it's meant to be a little bit of a crapshoot, but getting to the playoffs is supposed to be a big deal, and it is for so many of these teams. Some of these teams, obviously, they expect to make the chase every year. If they don't make the chase, it's an obvious failure of a season. But for a lot of these guys that make it in, that's a big deal for them. So just making the chase is a big deal. If you get out in the first or second round, I'm sorry. We've seen big, like, #1 seeds in baseball or even basketball on the rarest of occasions get eliminated in early rounds. It just happens sometimes. And so if people are seriously going to sit here and complain that Brad Keselowski or Martin Truex Jr., despite having 4 wins each this season, and yeah, they've been the best cars during the regular season, and the fact that they're out makes this chase stupid, I just don't follow you. Because like I said, Keselowski's problems this round were self-inflicted. You know, if you're going to win the championship, you need to be consistent even in the chase. You can't be up and down just getting wins. And Martin Truex Jr., this round, his cars have been really average. He didn't have a top 10 yet in this round coming into Talladega, so he was in a hole. He hadn't been as good as a lot of these other guys. And now having the engine problem at Talladega was just the icing on the cake that proved that that team was not ready to win a championship. I don't know why people are complaining so much about this, especially in the cases of those 2 drivers, because, yeah, they did it to themselves. The only other reason I could think for people being mad about this race is the fact that Chase Elliott got eliminated. But hey guys, Chase Elliott got wrecked at Charlotte, which wasn't really his fault, but it was an unforeseen circumstance. I can understand your frustration there. But then at Kansas, he had tire issues, which made him finish 31st. That one was more his fault. Like, not Chase Elliott's fault, but like the team's fault. That was something that they could have avoided. And then the fact that he was only able to finish 12th at Talladega, I'm sorry, Chase Elliott fans, as much as I like the guy, he doesn't deserve to move on. And even if we were in like the 2013 or 2012 format of the chase, his championship hopes, as well as Keselowski's and Truex's at this point, would be over anyways. Back in the original chase, when we just did it by 10 races and whoever had the most points at the end wins it all, even then, if you had more than one bad race, you were done. I remember in 2013 particularly, because I paid very close attention to it, Matt Kenseth only had one race where he finished like 23rd at Phoenix. It was really just, before that he'd had 2 wins, he'd run in the top 5 a lot. He had one bad race at Phoenix, and that cost him the championship to Jimmy Johnson. That's what it takes, even in the old format. So you guys can complain all you want about this new chase format doesn't really show who the real champion is, and I can't listen to you guys anymore. I'm sorry. I don't think anyone can look at the 8 drivers still in the chase and not say that they don't deserve to be there. You could argue that Keselowski or Elliott or Truex deserve it more than one of those guys, but I'm sorry, when you get into the chase and you have multiple races in a row where you have issues, many of which were self-inflicted, you deserve to be out, and I don't really feel as bad. The only guy I feel a little bad for is Truex, because he only really had one bad race, but even he was not good, didn't have top 10s the first 2 races of this round. I can't really sit here and blame the otherworldly spirits for knocking Truex out. I think it is what it is. I'm the kind of guy who really thinks consistency should be rewarded more so, and I know that this current chase format doesn't necessarily do that as much, but as it applies to this current round of the chase, or round 2 of the chase, Truex, Keselowski, they were not consistent, or they were consistently bad. So I'm sorry if I kind of like the current chase format the way it is. Anyway, I need to move on to many other things in this episode. This is going to be like a 30-minute episode, I swear. I may not even be lying this time. I talked briefly about Joey Logano winning. I had Joey Logano being out after this race. I didn't think he was going to be able to win it, but he proved me wrong, so I'll take the L on that one. I was right about the other 3. I'll take this one as a loss. I didn't expect Logano to run as well as he did. I knew Keselowski was going to be good, but Logano, I guess they're teammates, but I honestly just didn't think he'd be able to beat Keselowski, or I thought Chase Elliott would have a good car. I thought Jimmy Johnson would honestly run better than he did. I thought Jimmy Johnson was going to be one of the guys to beat. But Joey Logano won the race. Good for him. Had a good car. Took advantage of some of these other guys having issues. Seemed to have probably the second best car, maybe behind Keselowski. So good on him. He's moving on. Another big controversy. This race, just like last year, is filled with controversies. Another big controversy was Joe Gibbs Racing's team decision to basically ride around in the back and try to avoid any catastrophic wrecks. Matt Kenseth, Carl Edwards, and Kyle Busch, all of them coming in, had more than 25-point cushions. They all chose to basically ride around together in the back of the field for pretty much most of the race until kind of the very end. Now, this isn't a new strategy. We've seen guys employ this strategy several times in the past few years. I mean, it doesn't usually work very well for people, but in this case, it accomplished what these guys needed to accomplish, and right now, all 4 Joe Gibbs drivers are in the chase still. After race, people complained, saying, oh, they're not really trying, oh, what a weak move, what losers. The drivers themselves said that, yeah, they don't enjoy racing like this, but it's all about the bigger picture, and I, for one, as a Joe Gibbs Racing fan, would agree with them. I had no problem with seeing them run in the back. I mean, yes, did it make the race slightly less enjoyable to watch? I guess, but at the same time, the race itself, like I said earlier, was fun to watch in general. I liked watching the pack move around. I liked all the changes and positions and stuff all up front. As just a NASCAR fan in general, like I like to think of myself as, I still found the race entertaining, even though my guy, Matt Kenseth, wasn't in the thick of it for the most part. So yeah, a lot of people complained it was a weak move, called them out and all that, saying, wow, what losers for running in the back like that. And okay. I mean, people have run this strategy in the back all the time, and nobody's ever really complained until now. Are they complaining because it worked, or are they complaining just because everyone likes to hate Joe Gibbs Racing because they're good? I tend to think people just like to hate on Joe Gibbs Racing because like I said, people have done this strategy before. Nobody really complains, usually because it doesn't work as well as it did this time. That's just me. NASCAR said it didn't violate their silly, vague 100% rule where a driver has to always be trying really hard no matter what, which is a dumb rule in my opinion. But that rule is purely in place just to keep drivers from literally helping their teammates out by like letting them pass them or wrecking intentionally like Clint Boyer did back a few years ago. I mean, that's okay, but in this case, this rule, these drivers are just doing it for themselves. They're doing what they got to do. They're using this strategy to combat the kind of craziness that is putting Talladega as the final race of a chase round. Which, speaking of which, I am super happy that Talladega will not be the final race of this round next season. That is a good choice by NASCAR. The Joe Gibbs drivers, they still had to watch out. They still ran with the pack, just in the back. They didn't just literally drive a half lap down the whole time and just chill. I mean, I'm listening on the radio to them. They're constantly having to talk to each other, work their way around lap traffic every now and then, still having to do stuff like that. scheduling their pit stops to maintain some sort of distance to the leaders. It wasn't as easy as everyone and as just boring as a lot of people, I think, on the surface saw it as. I mean, yes, do we want everyone to be racing for wins every week? Obviously, yes we do. But when NASCAR has the schedule the way it is, you gotta look at the bigger picture, and I completely understood that. In the end, the guys that employed this weak and lame strategy are still racing for a championship, so you can complain about that all you want, but if they're the ones at Homestead holding the trophy, they're gonna look smart and you're gonna look like a whiner. That's all I have to say about that. So 2 controversies out of the way, on to the third. I feel like a politician. At the end of the race, Kevin Harvick and Kurt Busch made some contact on the track after the checkered flag. Kurt Busch kind of rubbed up alongside Harvick's car just a little bit. The two of them, I don't know, didn't seem like any big deal at the time, but once they pulled the pit road, Kevin Harvick got out of his car without taking his helmet or anything. He still had all his belts on practically, ran over to Kurt Busch's car and shoved him through the window of the 41 and then just walked off. Now, media and stuff didn't really notice this until a little bit after it happened, but then when they saw it and they had the video of it, it raised a lot of questions. For one, a lot of people were unsure why the two would have been mad at each other in the first place. I mean, both drivers just moved on to the next round. Kurt Busch got a good finish, finished in the top 5. He's moving on. Harvick obviously already has wins, so two of them should have been in good moods, right? Apparently, Kevin Harvick in his interview said he was unhappy with the fact that Kurt Busch bumped into him after the checkered flag, but then Kurt Busch said that it was just a misunderstanding of some kind and that they're just gonna have to talk about it. So I don't know what's going on. NASCAR announcers and stuff at the time seemed to be thinking, oh, maybe it was just Kurt Busch kind of rubbing up like they do sometimes and saying like, hey, good job, we made it, nice, woohoo. And Harvick took it the wrong way. I have no idea. But the one thing that does come out of it once again is Kevin Harvick just looks like an ass. That's really what this is. This is just a stupid thing for Kevin Harvick and even Kurt Busch a little bit to get involved in at this point. I mean, you guys have moved on to the Eliminator Round. There's only 8 drivers left. You two have a very real shot of racing for a championship at Homestead, and yet you're going to let some stupid little ego thing, in the case of Kevin Harvick, I think it's just his ego. Harvick has ego problems, in my opinion. I think he just has to, I don't know, enforce something about himself, and he's going to let that idea get in the way of the fact that, hey, they just moved on, we need to maintain good relationships these next couple weeks so we have no extra distractions. Nope. I'm just going to run in there, think with, I don't know, my fists, although it's just a shove, I guess, and do what he's gonna do. It's really just a stupid situation all around. If Kurt Busch really was trying to like antagonize him or kind of like say, hey, why'd you do that or something on the cooldown lap, then he's an idiot for doing that. But no matter what Kurt Busch was thinking, Kevin Harvick's dumb for running in there and shoving a dude on pit road when everyone's around watching, everyone sees it, now everyone's gonna be talking, every question he's gonna have to answer the next week is, what's going on with Kurt Busch? Have y'all talked? Are y'all friends? What's going on? And Kevin Harvick should know this by now. He's a veteran. He's done this for years. He should know better than to try and start something like this for no reason in such a crucial point of the schedule. I mean, I just gotta question why. Because if you have a problem now within that team at Stewart-Haas Racing, I mean, that's already kind of an unstable situation compared to others. I mean, you look at Hendrick Motorsports with like Jimmy Johnson, Chase Elliott, Casey Kane, all those dudes pretty level-headed. Johnson's obviously had a lot of success. You know, they're all pretty cool with each other. Joe Gibbs Racing, same way. I mean, you got Kyle Busch, Matt Kenseth, they're champions. Edwards and Hamlin have obviously been contenders. They all seem to get together pretty well, you know. Even Team Penske, when, you know, while, you know, Keselowski and Logano may not make everyone else happy, you get the impression that they work very well together. Stewart-Haas Racing, I don't really get that impression much at all. I mean, you got 3 guys that are driven by egos, and Kurt Busch, Harvick, and even Tony Stewart, and then you got Danica, who's just constantly, has not been able to live up to expectations since she got here, so there's added pressure there, there's added tension there. All 4 of those guys, while Kurt Busch has been better lately, and even Tony Stewart's been better for the most part, they're all just time bombs waiting to explode with the littlest bit of altercation. So Kevin Harvick taking that little bump on a cooldown lap as something that needs to start some physical altercation on pit road, it's just dumb. I try not to sit here and like just completely hate on a driver. I feel like all I'm doing today is hating on people, and I don't mean to. It's just, yesterday should have been it was a good race. Everyone should have been happy with the outcomes. Everyone should have been generally pleased with the level of racing. Everyone should have been at least accepting of the final results, but nope, all I see everywhere is a bunch of people getting mad, a lot of people hating on other drivers for doing stupid things. Kevin Harvick doing what he's doing, I don't even know what he's doing there. I'm trying not to be hateful, and I don't hate anybody in NASCAR, even Kevin Harvick. I dislike his character in a lot of cases like this one, but I don't hate the guy. I think he's a good person for the most part. I think every NASCAR driver, honestly, is a good person off the racetrack. On the racetrack, sometimes they make dumb decisions, and I'll call them out on that if I have to, and I know you guys will too. I hear it all the time. I see it all the time. My point is I'm trying not to be a negative person. This episode feels very negative. I feel like, I just bashed people for hating the race. I bashed the people who hate the Gibbs drivers. I bashed Kevin Harvick. I bashed a lot of people. Anyway, sorry for this episode running so long. There's just so much to talk about after Talladega. There'll probably be even more to talk about after Martinsville. I'll talk on Friday about my predictions for who I think is going to make it to the Final Four. I know you guys are all really interested in what I have to say about that, even though I don't know. I've been fairly accurate so far, I guess. I'm better here than on fantasy football, like in terms of picks, but not terrible. Anyway, yeah, that is my show. Thank you guys so much for watching. Whether you agree with my opinions all the time or not, I still really like that y'all watch and that y'all continue to support these videos. These videos take a lot of work, especially in college life. I have very little time to work on much other things that don't further my education, so to speak. So I really like it when I see good comments, good conversations going on in the comment section, and I hear what you guys have to tell me on Twitter, which, by the way, follow me on Twitter at DexRacing, link in the description. I really appreciate hearing all that stuff because it makes me know that, hey, I'm having some sort of, that these videos are worth it. The hours I put into these videos and my other videos and whatnot all the time, it really is worth something. I really am happy to see that. So, yep, that's it today. I'll stop talking. I'll see you guys later this week, and we'll preview Martinsville and stuff like I said. Should be a much shorter episode, should be much less of a controversial episode. That'll be that. So, I'll see you guys then. Bye-bye.